The jetway smelled like burnt coffee and jet fuel. I stood at gate C14 holding my boarding pass to Phoenix, fingers numb from the January cold still clinging to my coat. The flight attendant checking tickets glanced at me, then looked again. Sharper this time, like she'd recognized something. She moved closer, pretending to adjust the strap on her bag. Her name tag said Gina. "Sir," she whispered, barely audible over the gate announcements. "Don't get on this plane." I froze. Passengers bumped into my back, muttering. "Your wife," Gina said, pressing something into my palm. "She's at gate C22 with another man. I overheard her in the lounge. Please." The paper in my hand was a cocktail napkin. "Sky Harbor, Evil's Notary Fraud," it read in hurried script. Through the window I could see gate C22, 8 gates down. Jolene's blonde hair caught the fluorescent light. A man's arm rested across her shoulders. My foot lifted toward the jetway, then stopped. I pressed my hand to my chest and staggered sideways. The gate agent's voice sharpened. "Sir, sir, are you all right?" And I let my knees buckle just enough to look convincing. Gina caught my elbow. "Someone call a paramedic, he's not well." The crowd pulled back. I sagged against the counter, breathing hard, genuine panic mixing with the performance because through the window I could still see Jolene laughing, her head tilted back, the man's hand now on her waist. A wheelchair arrived. Paramedics asked questions I answered with calculated confusion. Blood pressure cuff, pulse check, someone radioing ahead to medical. Gina stayed close, her face professionally neutral but her eyes urgent. They wheeled me past gate C22. Jolene saw me, her face drained white. The man beside her, expensive suit, snakeskin boots, turned to look, but I kept my head down, let them wheel me toward the elevator. Behind me I heard her voice, sharp and rising. "Warren? Warren?" Well, I didn't answer. The drive home took 6 hours through a blizzard that turned I-80 into a white tunnel. My hands ached on the steering wheel. The wipers scraped ice with every pass, a rhythm that matched my pulse. She lied, she lied, she lied. I'd met Jolene 3 years ago when I refinanced the ranch. She'd handled the paperwork at First National, efficient and warm, asked smart questions about cattle futures and crop rotation. A month later, she brought me coffee at the feed store. 6 months after that, we were married at Pastor Winslow's church, same chapel where I'd buried Sarah 8 years before. I thought I was done being alone. The ranch appeared out of the snow at 3 in the morning. White clapboard house, red barn, the windmill silhouette against low clouds. I killed the engine and sat listening to the tick of cooling metal. My father had died in that house. My grandfather before him. 4 generations of Bledsoes holding this land through droughts and bank panics and the slow bleed of rural economics. 240 acres of sandhills and creek bottom that Jolene had called quaint on our third date, a word I'd chosen to ignore. The kitchen light was off. I let myself in quietly, set my keys on the counter. A business card lay face up beside the coffee maker. Horizon Dev Solar, Preston Vance Acquisitions. The logo was a rising sun over geometric panels. On the back, handwritten in Jolene's script, 60-day closing, March 1st. I picked it up. The paper was expensive. Heavy stock. The kind of card that cost money to print. The shower was running upstairs. I opened the drawer where Jolene kept her purse. Told myself I was looking for aspirin. Knew I was lying. Her wallet sat on top, unzipped. Beneath it, folded in thirds, was a power of attorney document with the First National letterhead. My signature sat at the bottom, notarized and dated 6 months ago. I'd never signed it. The shower cut off. I closed the drawer, moved to the sink, ran cold water over my hands. My wedding ring clicked against the faucet. In the window's reflection, I could see myself. 67 years old, lines around my eyes from squinting at distant fence lines, gray hair that Sarah used to cut on the porch every 6 weeks. Upstairs, Jolene's phone buzzed. Once, twice, 3 times. I heard her voice through the floorboards, muffled but clear enough. "He wasn't on the plane. We have a problem." I took my father's ranch journal from the shelf and sat at the kitchen table. The leather cover was worn smooth from 70 years of handling. My grandfather's entries in the front, fountain pen and formal script. Then my father's ballpoint sprawl through the middle decades. Then my own notes starting in 1987 when Dad's hands got too shaky to write. The last entry was from yesterday morning, January 14th, 62° F at dawn, unseasonably warm. 23 calves born this month, checked fence on the North 40, 2 posts need replacing. I turned to a fresh page, January 15th, 3:47 a.m., home early from Phoenix, Jolene waiting with another man at the airport. Power of attorney forged. Horizon Dev Solar, 60 days to closing. My handwriting looked steady, that surprised me. Upstairs, Jolene's footsteps crossed the bedroom. The bed springs creaked. After a while, her breathing evened into sleep. I sat in the dark kitchen, holding the journal, watching the first gray light touch the window. The windmill creaked outside, a sound I'd heard every morning of my life. The land doesn't lie. My father used to say that. The land shows you what's true. Soil quality, water table, whether a man's really worked his acres or just talked about it. I'd been ignoring what the land was showing me for 3 years. Time to start paying attention. Sunday morning, Jolene came downstairs in her church dress, navy blue with pearl buttons, the one she'd worn to the Christmas social. She smiled when she saw me at the table. "Warren, honey, you're home early. I thought you weren't back until tonight." I looked up from my coffee. "Wasn't feeling well. Came home yesterday." "Oh no." She moved to the counter, poured herself a cup, her back to me. "I hope it wasn't serious. You should have called. Happened fast. Where were you this weekend?" "Spa trip with the girls from the bank. I told you last week, remember?" She turned, tilted her head. "Linda's bachelorette thing. We went to that place in Lincoln." "Right. The spa." And she sat across from me, reached for my hand. Her fingers were cold. "You look tired. Maybe you should see Dr. Chen. Get checked out." "Maybe." We drove to church in silence. Pastor Winslow greeted us on the steps, shook my hand, told Jolene her dress was lovely. Inside, the pews smelled like lemon polish and old hymnals. Jolene sang all 4 verses of "Great is Thy Faithfulness," her voice clear and sweet. At the fellowship hour, she poured coffee for the elderly ladies, laughed at someone's joke about the weather, touched my shoulder when she passed, playing the part. In the parking lot afterwards, she squeezed my hand hard enough to hurt. "You weren't supposed to come back," she whispered. Then louder, smiling. "Let's get lunch at the diner, hun. My treat." Monday morning, I drove to town and parked outside First National. The bank opened at 9. I waited until 9:15, then went inside. The manager's name was Phil Hendricks, a broad man with a comb-over who'd gone to high school with my father. He waved me into his office. "Warren, good to see you. What can I do for you?" I pulled out the withdrawal receipt I'd found in Jolene's purse, $12,000, transferred on January 10th to an account I didn't recognize. "Phil, I need to know about this." He put on his reading glasses, studied the paper. "That's from your joint account. Your wife made the withdrawal. Is there a problem?" "I didn't authorize $12,000. "Well," he shifted in his chair. "She has full access, joint account holder." "What about larger amounts? Anything requiring both signatures?" Phil's expression changed slightly. "Warren, your wife has power of attorney, has for 6 months now. She can manage all your accounts." And the office went very quiet. I could hear the ventilation system humming, someone's phone ringing in the lobby. I never signed a power of attorney. "I have it on file, notarized last July at the branch." Phil opened a drawer, pulled out a folder, slid a document across the desk. My signature sat at the bottom, right above the notary seal. The loops on the capital B in Bledsoe were too elaborate. I never made that flourish. But the notary stamp was real, dated July 18th, and the witness signature belonged to someone named Patricia Vance. "This isn't my signature." Phil leaned back. "Warren, I understand you might be concerned, but this is a legal document. Your wife worked here for 15 years. I trust her completely." "She forged it." "That's a serious accusation." His voice cooled. "Do you have proof?" I stared at the paper. The letterhead was correct. The notary seal was embossed. Everything looked official, except the one thing that mattered. "I want to freeze the accounts." I can't do that without a court order, not with a valid POA in place." Phil stood, signaling the conversation was over. "Warren, maybe you should talk to Jolene about this. Work it out at home. Marriage counseling, perhaps? I'm sure there's just some confusion." "There's no confusion." "Then get a lawyer." He opened the door. "But unless you can prove fraud, your wife has full legal authority over those accounts." "I'm sorry." I walked out through the lobby. The teller, a young woman I didn't know, smiled at me. Behind the counter, Jolene's old nameplate still sat on the desk she'd used before we married. Jolene Marsh, loan officer. In my truck, I sat with the engine running, watching people come and go from the bank. A rancher, in Carhartt coveralls, a woman with 2 children. Normal people doing normal business, trusting that the papers they signed meant what they said. The power of attorney was dated July 18th. I'd been in the hospital that week, getting my knee replaced. Post-op recovery, pain medication, 3 days flat on my back. She'd planned this while I was unconscious. My phone buzzed. A text from Jolene, home by 5, making pot roast for dinner. Love you. I deleted it and drove toward Tuck Tucker's place, 3 miles east where the county road turned to gravel. Some things you couldn't fix alone. Tuck's place sat at the end of a long driveway, lined with cedar trees his wife had planted 40 years ago. The house was smaller than mine, 1 story with white vinyl siding, but the barn was good. New roof, proper ventilation. His cattle grazed the hillside beyond, black baldies against the brown winter grass. I found him on the back porch with a thermos of coffee and the Farm Bureau newsletter. He looked up when my truck door slammed. "Warren, saw you at church yesterday. Didn't get a chance to talk. Got a minute?" "Got several." He poured coffee into a second mug without asking, pushed it across the table. You look like you need it. The coffee was strong and bitter, the way ranch coffee should be. I wrapped my hands around the mug and told him about the airport, about Jolene and the man in the expensive suit, about the power of attorney I'd never signed. Tuck listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. My Carol died 6 months ago, he said finally. Cancer. Quick, which I guess was a mercy, but it left a hole big enough to drive a combine through. He looked at his coffee. Woman came around 2 months after the funeral. Real estate agent from Omaha. Said she'd heard I might be interested in selling, moving to town, starting fresh. Had papers drawn up and everything. What did you tell her? Told her to get off my property before I called the sheriff. He met my eyes. Point is, they smell grief, Warren. Come circling like coyotes around a sick calf. You were lonely. Jolene saw that, used it. I was stupid. You were human. He refilled both mugs. My daughter Sarah's a lawyer, works in Lincoln. Let me call her, see what she says about that power of attorney. He went inside. Through the window, I could hear his voice, low and serious. The wind rattled the bare branches of Carol's cedars. A crow called from the barn roof, harsh and insistent. Tuck came back out with his phone on speaker. Dad says you've got a forgery problem. Sarah's voice was crisp, professional. Tell me about the document. I described it, the date, the notary, the signature that wasn't quite mine. Where were you on July 18th? Hospital, knee replacement surgery. I was there the 16th through the 19th. Perfect. That's your alibi. Can you prove you were under anesthesia when the document was supposedly signed? Hospital records should show it. Good. Bring me everything. The POA, your hospital paperwork, any other documents with your signature for comparison. I'll take a look. She paused. Dad, you still there? Yeah, honey. Run down to the courthouse. Check if anything else has been filed. Deeds, liens, permits. If she forged one document, she might have forged others. Tuck looked at me, eyebrows raised. I nodded. We'll go this afternoon, he said. Warren? Sarah's voice softened slightly. This is going to get ugly. You understand that. If we prove forgery, we're talking criminal charges against your wife. And she's trying to steal my land. Then let's stop her. I'll clear my schedule for tomorrow. 2 o'clock, my office. After Tuck hung up, we sat finishing the coffee. A meadowlark called from the fence line, the first one I'd heard this year. Too early for the season, but there it was anyway. Fall spring, my father used to call it. January thaw that fooled the birds into thinking winter was over. Carol used to make apple pie, Tuck said suddenly, every Sunday. Used her grandmother's recipe, wouldn't let anyone else in the kitchen while she made it. He stood, went inside, came back with a handwritten card in a plastic sleeve. She'd want you to have this. Said a man needed something sweet to remember that good things existed. The recipe was written in faded blue ink, measurements and instructions in Carol's careful script. At the bottom, made with love, always. Tuck, I can't. You can. He pressed it into my hand. Now let's go see what your wife's been filing at the courthouse. The Custer County Courthouse smelled like floor wax and old paper. Brenda Kowalski sat behind the clerk's desk, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. She'd worked there 30 years, knew every family's business before they knew it themselves. Warren Bledsoe, haven't seen you in a dog's age. She looked past me to Tuck. Earl, sorry again about Carol. Appreciate it, Brenda. We need to check filings on Warren's property. Last 6 months. Her fingers moved across the keyboard, eyes on the screen. After a moment, she frowned. You've got a quit claim deed filed here. December 10th. Transfers the ranch to a joint tenancy with Jolene Bledsoe, with right of survivorship. My chest tightened. Let me see it. She printed a copy, slid it across the counter. There was my signature at the bottom, witnessed by Miguel Santos, my ranch hand. Miguel never signed this, I said. He was in Mexico that week, visiting family. Brenda looked at the document more carefully, then at me. The signature does look off. See how the slant changes halfway through your last name? Like someone got tired and started rushing. Tuck leaned closer. What else is filed? Road access permit application for solar farm construction. Filed January 5th, hearing scheduled for February 28th. Brenda pulled up another screen. Includes a letter of support from the property owner, that's you, Warren, saying you're in favor of the development. I never wrote that letter. It's got your signature on it. And she printed it, handed it over. The signature at the bottom looked more like mine this time, but the capital W in Warren was wrong. Too angular, too sharp. If that permit passes, Brenda said quietly, and the deed transfer goes through, your wife could sell that land before you even knew what happened. When's the hearing? February 28th, 6 weeks from now. Tuck and I walked out into the cold afternoon. The sun was already dropping toward the horizon, casting long shadows across the courthouse lawn. 6 weeks, I said. Then we'd better move fast. Tuck pulled his truck keys from his pocket. Sarah's office tomorrow at 2. Bring every document you can find. Bank statements, tax returns, anything with your real signature on it. What if we can't prove it in time? Then you lose 4 generations of your family's land to a woman who forged your name while you were unconscious. He gripped my shoulder. We're not going to let that happen. A pickup truck pulled into the courthouse lot. Preston Vance stepped out, snakeskin boots hitting the pavement. He saw us, smiled, and headed for the entrance without a word. We watched him disappear inside. That's him, I said, from the airport. Horizon Dev Solar, Tuck said. I've heard of them. Buy up farmland cheap, lease it to energy companies for panels, make millions. On my land. Not if we can help it. I drove home as the sun set, the road stretching empty ahead. The ranch journal sat on the passenger seat. I'd brought it to show Sarah tomorrow, proof of my real handwriting going back decades. At the kitchen table, I opened to the entry I'd written at 3 a.m. 2 days ago. Below it, I added January 16th, quit claim deed forged, road permit hearing February 28th. 6 weeks to save the ranch. Tuck's helping, his daughter's a lawyer, Jolene's in too deep to stop now. So am I. The next morning, Jolene made breakfast, scrambled eggs, bacon, toast with butter and jam. She hummed while she cooked, some tune from the radio. The kitchen smelled like coffee and grease. You seem better today, she said, setting a plate in front of me. Less stressed. Slept okay. Good. She sat across from me, didn't touch her own food. Warren, I've been thinking. Maybe we should talk about the future. The ranch is a lot of work for one person. You're not getting any younger. I manage fine. But what if something happened? What if you got hurt or sick? Her voice was gentle, concerned. I just want to make sure you're protected, that we have options. What kind of options? Well, she sipped her coffee. There are companies that lease land for solar development. Good income, no work. You could take it easy, enjoy retirement. I cut my eggs into small pieces, didn't eat them. You've been talking to someone about this? Just exploring possibilities. Preston Vance stopped by last week while you were preparing for your trip. He mentioned Horizon Dev might be interested in our property, said it's perfect for solar, flat terrain, good sun exposure, close to transmission lines. He stopped by here. Very briefly, I told him we'd think about it. She reached across the table, touched my hand. It's just a conversation, honey. No pressure. I looked at her fingers on mine. No calluses, nails painted pale pink, hands that had never fixed fence or pulled a calf or felt barbed wire cut deep. I'm not selling, I said. Her smile tightened. Of course not, just keeping our options open. After she left for errands in town, I called Miguel. He answered on the third ring, road noise in the background. Boss, everything okay? Need to ask you something. December 10th, where were you? December? I was in Guadalajara, my mother's birthday. I left December 7th, came back the 18th. Why? Someone witnessed a legal document with your signature. Dated December 10th, silence on the line. Then, I never signed nothing for Mrs. Bledsoe. She asked me once, back in November. Said it was for insurance paperwork. I told her I couldn't, I was leaving for Mexico. You're sure about the dates? I got my passport right here. Want me to send you pictures? Yeah, send them now. The photos came through 2 minutes later. Passport stamp showing departure, December 7th, return December 18th. Miguel Santos had been in another country when he supposedly witnessed my signature transferring the ranch to joint ownership with Jolene. I forwarded the images to Sarah Tucker's email with a short message. Miguel was in Mexico. Couldn't have witnessed the deed. Her reply came back in 30 seconds. That's felony forgery. See you at 2 Tuck. I made it to Lincoln, and by 1:30 found Sarah's office in a brick building near the Capitol. She was younger than I'd expected. Early 40s, dark hair pulled back, wearing a gray suit that looked expensive. Her handshake was firm. Let's see what we're dealing with. I spread the documents across her conference table. The power of attorney, the quitclaim deed, the road permit application, bank statements showing withdrawals I hadn't authorized, Miguel's passport photos on my phone. Sarah examined each paper carefully, making notes on a legal pad. After 20 minutes, she sat back. This is bad, Warren, really bad. Can you stop it? Maybe. The passport proves Miguel couldn't have witnessed the deed. That makes it void. The power of attorney, if we can prove you were under anesthesia when it was supposedly signed, that's fraud. She tapped her pen against the pad. But proving it takes time. Court dates, hearings, evidence presentation. And that road permit hearing is in 6 weeks. What happens if the permit passes? If the county approves solar farm construction on your land, And Jolene has legal authority through the forged POA. She can sign the lease agreement with Horizon Dev. Once that's executed, you're looking at years of litigation to unwind it. Meanwhile, they're putting up panels. So we have 6 weeks. Less. We need to file motions, get injunctions, line up expert testimony. She opened her laptop. I know a handwriting analyst in Omaha, Dr. Brennan. He's expensive. Probably $5,000 for a full analysis and court testimony. $5,000 was most of what I had left in personal savings after the withdrawals Jolene had already made. Do it, I said. Sarah made the call, put it on speaker. Dr. Brennan's voice was dry, academic. She explained the situation, forged signatures, multiple documents, criminal case likely. I'd need the original documents, not copies, so he said, and exemplars. 20 to 30 samples of Mr. Bledsoe's genuine signature from different time periods. I have a ranch journal, I said. Goes back to 1947. My handwriting's in there for the last 40 years. Perfect. That's exactly what I need. Paper rustling on his end. I can start next week, have preliminary findings in 10 days, full report with court testimony in 3 weeks. The hearing's in 6 weeks, Sarah said. Then we'd better move quickly. Send everything overnight. I'll prioritize this. As after she hung up, Sarah looked at me directly. Warren, you understand what we're doing here. We're not just fighting to keep your land. We're accusing your wife of multiple felonies. If we prove this, she's facing prison time. And she forged my signature, tried to steal my family's ranch. I know. I just need you to be clear about the stakes. She closed her laptop. Once we file these motions, there's no going back. This gets public, ugly. People will take sides. Let them. All right. She started gathering the documents. I'll need the original journal, all your bank records, medical records from your surgery. Get me everything by tomorrow morning. We shook hands at the door. Driving home, I watched the sandhills roll past. Still brown from winter, but showing hints of green where the south-facing slopes got more sun. Another few weeks and the meadowlarks would return for real, not just the one confused bird that had shown up too early. At the ranch, I found Jolene's car in the driveway. Her voice carried from upstairs, sharp and angry. I told you, he wasn't supposed to come back. No, he didn't see anything. I don't know, Preston. He's asking questions. Well, figure it out. That's what I'm paying you for. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, listening. The hearing's in 6 weeks. We just need to hold on until then. Yes, the permit will pass, I made sure. Because the county commissioner owes me a favor. That's why. Just stay away from the ranch until this is done. She hung up. Her footsteps crossed the bedroom. I walked into the kitchen, got a glass of water from the tap. She came down a minute later, face composed, smiling. You're home early. How was town? Fine. I was thinking we could drive to Omaha this weekend, see a movie, have a nice dinner, get away from the ranch for a bit. She moved closer. We haven't had a real date in months. Can't. Too much work. Warren. Her voice carried an edge now. You've been distant lately, ever since Phoenix. Is something wrong? I'm tired, Jolene. That's all. Are you sure? Because if there's something bothering you, we should talk about it. Communication is important in a marriage. I looked at her, really looked. Saw the calculation behind the concern, the performance underneath the care. 3 years I'd been married to this woman and never seen it. Wanted too badly to believe I wasn't alone anymore. I'm fine, I said. Just need some rest. That night, I slept in the guest room, told her my back was acting up. Heard her on the phone again after midnight, voice muffled through the walls. The sheriff's deputy arrived at 8 the next morning. I was checking fence in the north pasture when I heard the cruiser's engine. By the time I got back to the house, he was waiting on the porch with papers in his hand. Warren Bledsoe? That's me. I'm serving you with a temporary restraining order, filed by your wife, Jolene Bledsoe. He handed me the documents. She's alleging domestic violence and threats. You need to vacate the property within 48 hours. You're not to come within 500 feet of her or the residence. The world tilted slightly. What? If you violate this order, you'll be arrested. Do you understand? I looked at the papers. Jolene's signature at the bottom, dated yesterday afternoon. A whole paragraph about my increasingly erratic and threatening behavior, my refusal to communicate, my fits of rage. All lies. I never touched her, never threatened her. That's for the judge to decide. You've got 48 hours. The deputy's face was sympathetic but firm. I'm sorry, Mr. Bledsoe. Pack what you need and find somewhere else to stay. He drove away. I stood holding the restraining order, watching the dust settle on the gravel drive. Through the kitchen window, I saw Jolene watching me. She raised her coffee mug in a small salute, smiled, and turned away. I called Tuck from the barn. He answered immediately. They filed a restraining order. I have to leave. Jesus, how long? 48 hours. Can I? You'll stay here. Pack your things. Come now. Miguel found me in the barn 20 minutes later. I was throwing clothes into a duffel bag I kept for cattle shows. Boss, I heard. Deputy was talking to Mrs. Bledsoe when I came up the drive. He looked stricken. This is because of what I told you. About the signature. This is because she's a thief and she's running out of time. What can I do? Keep an eye on things. Let me know if anyone comes around, especially Preston Vance. And Miguel? I gripped his shoulder. That passport. Don't lose it. We're going to need it. You got it. I loaded the truck with everything I'd need. Clothes, the ranch journal, files of bank statements and tax returns, my grandfather's surveying equipment that I'd promised Sarah for handwriting comparison. The house sat behind me, 4 generations of my family's home, and I was being forced out by a woman who'd lived there less than 3 years. Pastor Winslow's truck pulled into the drive as I was finishing. He got out slowly, hat in his hands. Warren, I heard about the restraining order. I wanted to check on you. I'm fine, Pastor. Jolene came to see me this morning. She's very upset. Says you've been acting strangely, that she's afraid. He looked uncomfortable. I've known you a long time, Warren. This doesn't sound like you. It's not like me, because it's not true. Are you certain? Sometimes grief makes us... I'm certain. I closed the truck's tailgate. She's lying to you. She's been lying to everyone. That's a serious accusation. It's a serious situation. I climbed into the cab. Pastor, you married us. You knew Sarah, knew our marriage. Do you really think I'd become violent 3 years after finding someone new? He was quiet for a long moment. No, I don't think you would. Then trust your instinct. I started the engine. Truth's coming out soon. You'll see. I drove to Tuck's place and unloaded my things into his spare room, Carol's sewing room, still filled with her fabric and patterns, and the old Singer machine she'd used to make quilts. The room smelled faintly of lavender. Long as you need, Tuck said from the doorway. We'll figure this out. That night, I lay in a strange bed, listening to sounds that weren't my home. Tuck's TV through the wall, his dog barking at something outside, the wind hitting the house from a different angle than I was used to. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Restraining order is just the beginning. Drop the forgery investigation or it gets worse. I stared at the message, then deleted it. The land remembers who loves it and who tries to sell it. My father used to say that. He used to walk the fence lines every morning, checking for breaks, talking to the cattle like they were family. 4 generations of Bledsoes had held this ranch through everything. I wasn't going to be the one who lost it. Even if it meant destroying my marriage to save it, I spent $5,000 I couldn't afford on Dr. Brennan's handwriting analysis. Shipped the ranch journal overnight, along with 40 years of tax returns, loan applications, insurance forms, anything with my genuine signature. Tuck drove me to the FedEx office in town, waited while I filled out the forms, didn't comment when my hands shook slightly, putting the journal in the box. That book had never left the ranch in 78 years. Felt like sending off a piece of my father. He'll take care of it, Tuck said on the drive back. Sarah vouched for him. If he's wrong, I've got nothing left. Then he'd better be right. At Tuck's place, I sat at Carol's sewing table and opened my laptop. Miguel had helped me set it up last year, show me how to access email and spreadsheets. I logged into the bank account that Jolene didn't know about, the one I'd opened after Dad died, to keep his life insurance separate, $42,000. Everything I had left after the ranch operating expenses and Jolene's withdrawals. The handwriting analysis took $5,000. Sarah's retainer was another $3,000. If this went to trial, I'd need $20,000 more, maybe $30,000. I could lose everything and still lose the ranch. My phone rang. Sarah. Got your email about the text message last night. Did you save it? Deleted it. Should I have kept it? Would have been nice for evidence, but it's okay. Phone records will show the incoming call. Paper shuffling on her end. Warren, I need to ask you something. How's your health? Fine. Why? Because if they're threatening you, they might escalate. I want you to get a full checkup. Physical, cognitive assessment, the works. Document that you're competent, healthy, thinking clearly. You think they'll claim I'm senile? I think they'll claim whatever helps them keep control of your assets. Her voice was matter-of-fact. Right now, you're banned from your own home based on an abuse allegation no one witnessed. They've already shown they'll lie. Let's prove you're exactly who you say you are. A competent adult defending his property. I made an appointment with Dr. Chen for the next morning. That evening, I sat on Tuck's porch with coffee and the ranch records I'd salvaged. The sun dropped toward the horizon, painting the hills orange and gold. Meadowlarks called from the fence line. Real ones this time, not stragglers, meaning spring was actually coming. Tuck came out with his phone. Just got off with Sarah. She filed for an emergency hearing on the restraining order. Judge scheduled it for next week. What are our chances? Honestly, 50-50. Jolene's got no evidence, but you've got no witnesses either. It's her word against yours. He sat down heavily. But Sarah's good. She'll punch holes in their story. We sat in silence for a while. A coyote yipped somewhere in the distance. Tuck's dog lifted his head, listening, then settled back down. Carol died in that bedroom, Tuck said suddenly. Hospice bed, morphine drip, the whole thing. Took 3 weeks from diagnosis to gone. He stared at his coffee. Night before she died, she made me promise I'd keep the ranch. Said too many old places were disappearing, turned into subdivisions or sold off to corporations. Said the land needed people who remembered what it was for. Sounds like Carol. Every morning I pour coffee out here and tell her what's happening with the place. Stupid maybe, but it helps. He looked at me. Point is, she'd tell me to fight for your land, same as I'd fight for mine. 'Cause it's not just dirt and grass, it's who we are. My throat tightened. I appreciate it, Tuck. Nothing to appreciate. It's just what neighbors do. Inside, I opened the ranch journal to a page near the middle. My father's handwriting, July 1983. Worst drought in 50 years. Lost 12, head to heat stress. Bank called about the loan. Payments overdue. Peterson's place sold at auction last week. Real estate man came by. Said he'd give me a fair price if I wanted out. Told him no. Held on when others sold. Land's worth more than money. Below it, in my grandfather's fountain pen, some things you don't sell. You hold them for the next generation, even when it costs you. I took out my own pen and wrote on a fresh page. February 2nd, spent my last $5,000 on the truth. Living in Tuck's spare room, banned from my own home, but the land's still there, still mine, still worth fighting for. Dad was right. Some things you don't sell. Outside, full dark had fallen. Through the window, I could see my ranch in the distance. Lights on in the house, where Jolene was probably calling Preston, planning their next move. Let them plan. I had truth on my side now, and a lawyer who believed me, and a neighbor who poured coffee for his dead wife every morning, because love didn't stop at the grave. We'd see who was still standing when spring came. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for February 10th, 9 days after I'd been forced off my own land. Sarah met me outside the courthouse at 8 in the morning, carrying a leather briefcase that looked like it had seen 100 trials. Let me do the talking. Answer questions directly, don't elaborate. If you're angry, don't show it. I'm past angry. Good. Use that. She straightened her suit jacket. Jolene will be in there with her lawyer. Don't make eye contact. Don't react to anything they say. Understood? Understood. Inside, the courtroom smelled like floor wax and old wood. Jolene sat at the opposite table with a man in an expensive suit, Dale Morrison from Omaha, one of those lawyers who advertised on billboards. She was wearing her church dress again, had tissues in her hand. When I walked in, she looked down, shoulders trembling, playing the victim. Judge Patricia Oakes came in at 8:30, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes. She reviewed the file, then looked at both tables. This is a temporary restraining order based on allegations of domestic violence. Mrs. Bledsoe, your attorney may present. Morrison stood. Your Honor, my client has been living in fear for weeks. Her husband's behavior has become increasingly erratic. Mood swings, paranoia, accusations. She filed this order for her own safety. Do you have evidence of violence? Emotional abuse, Your Honor. Threatening statements, intimidation. Witnesses? My client's testimony. Anyone else present during these alleged incidents? Morrison hesitated. The incidents occurred in private, Your Honor. Judge Oakes turned to Sarah. Counsel? Sarah stood. Your Honor, Mr. Bledsoe has never touched his wife, never threatened her. These allegations emerged only after he discovered financial irregularities, unauthorized withdrawals, forged documents. This restraining order is a tactical maneuver to prevent him from accessing his own property while his wife completes a fraudulent land sale. That's a serious accusation. Supported by evidence, Sarah opened her briefcase. We have bank records showing $12,000 in unauthorized withdrawals. A power of attorney Mr. Bledsoe never signed, notarized while he was under anesthesia. A quitclaim deed witnessed by an employee who was out of the country at the time. Morrison jumped up. Your Honor, these wild allegations are documented. Sarah handed copies to the bailiff. We've hired a handwriting expert. His preliminary findings confirm the signatures are forgeries. Judge Oakes studied the papers. The courtroom was quiet, except for the clock ticking on the wall. Mrs. Bledsoe, the judge said finally, did you make withdrawals from your husband's account without his knowledge? Jolene dabbed her eyes. He has memory problems, Your Honor. Gets confused. I was helping manage the finances. I don't have memory problems, I said. Sarah touched my arm. Stay quiet. but Judge Oakes looked at me. Mr. Bledsoe, have you been diagnosed with any cognitive issues? No, ma'am. I saw Dr. Chen last week. Full evaluation, clean bill of health. We have the medical records, Sarah added, sliding another document forward. Morrison stood again. Your Honor, my client is terrified. She shouldn't have to prove her husband is dangerous before protecting herself. She should have to prove he did something. Judge Oakes closed the file. I'm dissolving the temporary restraining order. Mr. Bledsoe may return to his property immediately. However, she looked at both of us, I'm also ordering both parties to maintain peaceful contact. No harassment, no threats, no destruction of property. Understood? Yes, Your Honor, Sarah and I said together. Morrison started to object, but Jolene put her hand on his arm, shook her head. She looked at me then, and I saw something flicker in her expression. Not fear, calculation. They had another plan. I drove back to the ranch that afternoon. Jolene's car was in the driveway. I parked beside it, took my duffel bag from the truck bed, and walked up to the house I'd been locked out of for 9 days. She was in the kitchen, phone to her ear. When she saw me, she ended the call quickly. Warren. Jolene. We stood there 5 feet apart, the kitchen table between us. The coffee maker was still on. Her breakfast dishes sat in the sink. The judge made a mistake, she said quietly. I really am afraid of you. No, you're not. You've changed, ever since Phoenix. You're paranoid, suspicious. It's not healthy. I found the quitclaim deed, the power of attorney, the road permit application. Her face went still. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, you do. I set my bag down. It's over, Jolene. We've got proof. Proof of what? That I helped manage accounts for a husband who gets confused? That I made sure paperwork was filed correctly? She moved toward the coffee maker, poured a cup with steady hands. You're going to look foolish when this gets to court. We'll see. Where have you been staying? Tucker's place. Of course. He's been feeding you these conspiracy theories, hasn't he? Carol died, and he's lonely, needs a project. You're it. She sipped her coffee. Warren, it's not too late to fix this. Drop the investigation, apologize to the judge, and we can move forward. Forward to what? Selling the ranch. To a comfortable retirement, financial security. No more worrying about cattle prices or drought or whether the roof on the barn will last another winter. She set down the cup. You're 67 years old. You've worked hard enough. This land isn't work. It's who I am. It's dirt, Warren. Just dirt. Something in my chest went cold and hard. Sarah had been right. Once I'd said these things out loud, there was no going back. Pack your things, I said. I want you out by the end of the week. This is my home, too. No, it's not. When I picked up my bag. You've got 7 days. I walked upstairs to the bedroom, heard her on the phone again before I'd even reached the landing. Her voice was low, urgent. I couldn't make out the words, but I didn't need to. Preston would be here soon. And whatever they were planning, it was about to accelerate. That night, Sarah called with news. Dr. Brennan finished the preliminary analysis. Warren, it's solid. 4 different documents, 4 forged signatures. He can testify with certainty that none of them are yours. When? The road permit hearing is February 28th. That's in 18 days. We need to file a motion to block it. Present the forgery evidence to the county commission. She paused. But there's something else. I pulled financial records on President Vance. His company, Horizon Dev, is leveraged to the hilt. If this solar deal doesn't go through, he's bankrupt. So he's desperate. Very. And desperate people make mistakes. I heard her typing. There's more. Those gambling debts Jolene has. The offshore poker accounts. They're registered to a shell company, Horizon Capital LLC. Preston's company, subsidiary of it. Warren, he's not just her lover. He owns her debt. This whole thing, the affair, the forgeries, the land grab, it's not romance. It's coercion. I sat down on the bed. Through the window I could see the barn, dark against the winter sky. She's his victim too, I said. She's also your enemy. Don't forget that. Sarah's voice was firm. She made choices. She forged documents. She lied to the bank. She filed a false restraining order. Even if Preston pushed her into it, she's culpable. I know. Good. Because we're about to destroy both of them, and I need you clear-eyed about that. After we hung up, I lay in bed listening to the house settle around me. Jolene was in the guest room. We hadn't spoken since the kitchen. Tomorrow, I'd ask Miguel to change the locks, make sure she couldn't access the barn or the equipment shed. But tonight I just lay there, thinking about how 3 years ago I'd stood in Pastor Winslow's church and promised to love and cherish a woman who was already planning to rob me blind. My father used to say, you can't blame yourself for other people's choices. You can only control your own. I'd chosen to trust her. Now I was choosing to fight back. The county commission hearing was 18 days away. Sarah filed motions, assembled evidence, prepared witness lists. I spent my days working the ranch, feeding cattle, fixing fence, pretending I wasn't about to destroy my wife in public. Jolene stayed in the guest room. We moved around each other like ghosts, spoke only when necessary. She made her own meals, I made mine. At night, I heard her crying through the walls. Soft sounds that might have been real or might have been performance. I didn't know anymore. One evening, I found Tuck on my front porch, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. Figured you could use the company. We sat in the chairs Carol had picked out 3 years ago, back when I was getting married and she was getting diagnosed. The sun was setting, painting the sandhills in shades of orange and purple. A coyote called from somewhere in the north pasture. Sarah told me about the gambling debt, Tuck said. Preston owning it. Yeah. So Jolene's caught between a rock and a hard place. Probably terrified of what happens if this deal falls through. Probably. You could offer her a way out. Drop the charges if she cooperates, testifies against Preston. Sarah could work something out with the prosecutor. I drank my coffee. It was bitter, the way Tuck always made it. She forged my name 4 times, I said. Filed a restraining order claiming I abused her. Tried to steal land my great-grandfather homesteaded in 1887. I know. If I let her walk, she gets away with it. If you prosecute her, she goes to prison. 5 years, maybe 10. Tuck looked at me. That's a long time for a woman who is probably scared out of her mind. She made choices. So did Preston. He's the one who set this whole thing up. The gambling debt, the forgeries, the solar deal. Jolene's just the tool he used. I set down my cup. You think I should show mercy? I think you should decide what kind of man you want to be when this is over. He stood stretched. Carol used to say, revenge feels good until you have to live with it. Then it just sits there, heavy, reminding you of what you became. And after he left, I sat alone on the porch until full dark. The windmill creaked in the distance, the sound I'd heard every night of my life. Inside, through the lit kitchen window, I could see Jolene moving around, making tea, standing at the sink, staring out at nothing. 3 years ago, she'd brought me coffee at the feed store, smiled, asked about my day. I'd been so grateful for the attention, so eager not to be alone anymore, that I'd ignored every warning sign. Now, I had the power to send her to prison. My father's journal was inside, sitting on the kitchen table. I'd gotten it back from Dr. Brennan yesterday, along with his full report. Definitive proof of forgery, typed on official letterhead, signed and notarized. I went inside. Jolene was at the table, hands wrapped around her mug. We need to talk, I said. She looked up. Her eyes were red. Okay. I sat across from her, same spot where she'd squeezed my hand too hard and whispered you weren't supposed to come back. The hearing's in 18 days. Sarah's presenting the forgery evidence. Dr. Brennan will testify. Miguel's bringing his passport. I kept my voice level. You're going to lose. I know. Preston will go to prison. Fraud, forgery, coercion. 10 years minimum. Good. Her voice was flat. He deserves it. So do you. She flinched, but didn't argue. Sarah says she can work a deal. You testify against Preston, provide evidence of how he set this up, and maybe the prosecutor reduces charges. Probation instead of prison. Why would you do that? Because Carol Tucker's been dead 6 months, and Tuck still pours her coffee every morning on that porch. I met her eyes. Because my father held this land through the drought of '83 when everyone else sold. Because some things matter more than revenge. She was quiet for a long time. What do you want from me? The truth. All of it. How Preston found you, how the debt happened, every document you forged, every lie you told. I stood. You have until tomorrow night. After that, Sarah files for full prosecution. And I walked out, left her sitting at the table with her cold tea. In the barn, I found Miguel checking the calving schedule. He looked up when I came in. Boss, you okay? No. I leaned against the stall door. But I will be. The newest calf, the twin heifer born 3 weeks ago, stood on wobbly legs beside her mother. Strong bloodline, good conformation. She'd be worth keeping for breeding stock. What should we call her? Miguel asked. I thought about Gina at the airport, pressing that napkin into my palm. About Sarah working nights to build my case. About Tuck showing up with coffee because neighbors didn't let neighbors face things alone. Gina, I said. We'll call her Gina. Miguel smiled. Good name. Outside, the moon was rising over the sandhills. March was 2 days away. Spring just around the corner. The land would green up soon. Meadowlarks would return. And whatever happened at that courthouse, the ranch would still be here. 4 generations of Bledsoes had held it through worse. I could hold it through this. The county commission meeting room was packed. I'd never seen so many people show up for a road permit hearing. Ranchers, townspeople, reporters from the North Platte Telegraph and Kearney Hub. Word had spread about the forgeries, about Preston's solar scheme, about the fight for the Bledsoe Ranch. Sarah sat beside me at the front table, her briefcase open, documents arranged in perfect order. Dr. Brennan was in the second row, gray-haired and professorial. Miguel sat behind us, passport in hand. Tuck was there too, along with half a dozen neighbors who'd known my family for generations. Preston Vance sat across the aisle with his lawyer, Brooks Klein from Lincoln. Expensive suit, gold cufflinks, the look of a man who won more than he lost. Preston wore his snakeskin boots, polished to a shine. His jaw was tight. Jolene wasn't there. She'd given her statement to Sarah 3 days ago. 9 pages of testimony about how Preston had targeted her, manufactured the gambling debt, coerced her into the forgeries. Sarah had forwarded it to the county prosecutor that same afternoon. The commission chairman, Earl Hoffman, a cattle rancher I'd known 30 years, called the meeting to order at 2 o'clock. We're here regarding road access permit application 2024-47, filed by Horizon Dev Solar for construction access to the Bledsoe property. He looked at Preston. Mr. Vance, you have the floor. Preston stood, smoothing his tie. Thank you, Chairman. This is a straightforward matter. My company has a lease agreement with the property owner, Warren Bledsoe, to develop a solar farm on his land. We simply need county road access for construction vehicles. The project brings jobs, clean energy, and tax revenue to Custer County. Do you have the lease agreement? Brooks handed up a document. Hoffman reviewed it, passed it to the other commissioners. This is signed by Warren Bledsoe? Yes, sir. Notarized last month. Hoffman looked at me. Warren, you want to speak to this? Sarah stood. Chairman Hoffman, Mr. Bledsoe never signed that lease. Just as he never signed the power of attorney, the quitclaim deed, or the letter of support for this permit. All of those signatures are forgeries. The room erupted in whispers. Preston's lawyer shot to his feet. That's a baseless accusation, backed by expert analysis. Sarah handed documents to the bailiff. Dr. Marcus Brennan is a certified forensic document examiner with 30 years of experience. He's analyzed 4 separate documents allegedly signed by Mr. Bledsoe. His findings are conclusive. None of these signatures are genuine. Dr. Brennan stood. Chairman, if I may? Hoffman nodded. Brennan approached the commission table with blown-up photographs of the signatures. Notice the slant variation here in the capital B of Bledsoe. Mr. Bledsoe's genuine signature, taken from decades of ranch records, tax documents, and bank statements, shows a consistent 45-degree rightward slant. The forged signatures show inconsistent slant ranging from 35 to 50 degrees. Additionally, the pressure patterns are wrong. Mr. Bledsoe writes with firm, even pressure. These forgeries show hesitation marks, lifting and restarting, classic signs of simulation. He pointed to another photo. Most damning is the quitclaim deed. It's supposedly witnessed by Miguel Santos on December 10th, but Mr. Santos was in Mexico that entire week. Miguel stood, holding up his passport. I got the stamps right here. December 7th to December 18th. Guadalajara, I couldn't have witnessed nothing. The commissioners leaned together, conferring in low voices. Preston's face had gone pale. His lawyer flipped through papers looking for something to salvage. Chairman, Brooks said, even if there are irregularities in these documents, my client acted in good faith. He had no knowledge of your client created the irregularities. Sarah's voice was sharp. Preston Vance owns Horizon Capital LLC, a shell company that holds Mrs. Bledsoe's gambling debts, $90,000, accumulated through offshore poker sites that Mr. Vance controls. He used that debt as leverage to coerce her into forging Mr. Bledsoe's signature. And she handed up more documents, corporate filings, bank records, email chains between Preston and Jolene discussing collateral and signatures and timeline for closing. This wasn't a legitimate business deal, Sarah continued. It was a criminal conspiracy to defraud an elderly landowner of his family's property. Brooks was standing now, objecting loudly, but Hoffman waved him down. I've seen enough. This permit application is based on fraudulent documents. Denied. He looked at Preston. Mr. Vance, I'm referring this matter to the county prosecutor. You'll want to get your affairs in order. Preston stood abruptly, chair scraping. This is absurd. I have contracts, investors, timeline commitments. You have forgeries, Hoffman said flatly. Meeting adjourned. The gavel came down. The parking lot was chaos. Reporters shouting questions, cameras flashing. Preston shoving through the crowd toward his Mercedes. I stood by my truck with Sarah, watching it unfold. He'll flee, she said. My guess is he's gone by morning. Let him run. Bank's already frozen his accounts. Tuck appeared, clapped me on the shoulder. Hell of a thing, Warren. Your daddy would be proud. Pastor Winslow was next, hat in his hands. I owe you an apology. I should have believed you from the start. You believed what you saw. I should have looked closer. He met my eyes. I'm sorry. As one by one people came over, Neighbors who'd known my family, townspeople who'd heard the story, ranchers who understood what it meant to fight for land. Not everyone. Some still thought I'd been too hard on Jolene, that I should have worked it out privately. But enough. Enough to matter. Miguel drove up in the ranch truck, window down. Boss, just checked the north pasture. That calf Gene is doing real good. Strong legs, good weight. Thanks, Miguel. You coming home? Yeah. I looked at the courthouse, the limestone building where my family's records had been filed for 4 generations. I'm coming home. Sarah packed her briefcase. Prosecutor wants to meet tomorrow. Build the criminal case against Preston. Jolene's testimony will help, but we'll need yours too. I'll be there. Warren? She paused. You did the right thing, not just fighting back, but how you fought. With evidence, with truth. Your father would have done the same. After she left, I sat in my truck for a while, letting the adrenaline drain away. Through the windshield, I could see the sandhills rolling toward the horizon, brown and gold, in the late afternoon light. Another week, and they'd start greening up. Meadowlarks were already back, their songs carrying across the pastures every morning. The ranch was still mine, still whole, still there for the next generation, whoever that turned out to be. I started the engine and drove home. Preston Vance left Nebraska the night of the hearing, drove his Mercedes to the Omaha airport and caught a red-eye to Phoenix, then on to somewhere without extradition. The FBI put out a warrant within 48 hours, but by then he was gone. His company filed for bankruptcy the following week. The solar farm deal collapsed. Investors lost millions. Jolene took the prosecutor's deal. 3 years probation, full restitution of the $12,000 she'd withdrawn, permanent restraining order, keeping her 500 feet from the ranch. She moved to her sister's place in Omaha, got a job at a title company doing filing. I heard she was going to counseling, trying to rebuild. I didn't wish her ill. I just didn't think about her much. The divorce was final by mid-April. Sarah handled everything, kept it clean and simple. Jolene didn't contest anything, didn't ask for the house or the land or anything except her clothes and the car she'd brought into the marriage. She signed the papers at her sister's kitchen table, Sarah told me. Didn't say a word, just signed and walked away. I felt nothing when Sarah handed me the final decree. No relief, no satisfaction, just tired. Miguel found me in the barn that afternoon, organizing tack. Boss, you okay? Yeah. You don't look okay. I hung up a bridle, checked the leather for cracks. I won, Miguel. Got the ranch back, kept the land. That's what matters. You also lost your wife. I lost my wife the day she forged my signature. Just took me a while to figure it out. I turned to face him. You did good, Miguel. The passport, the testimony. Couldn't have done it without you. Just told the truth. He shifted his weight. Mrs. Tucker called. Said to tell you, she's got pot roast, if you want to come by for dinner. Tuck's wife died 6 months ago. I know, but he still calls her Mrs. Tucker. Miguel smiled slightly. Says she'd want you fed proper. That evening, I drove to Tuck's place. Found him on the back porch with 2 cups of coffee already poured. Heard about the divorce? He said. Yeah. How you holding up? I'm here. That's something. We sat in silence for a while. A coyote called from the hills. Tuck's dog lifted his head, listened, then went back to sleep. Carol made me promise something before she died, Tuck said. Made me promise I'd live. Not just exist, not just go through the motions, but actually live. Said too many people die before they're buried. What did you tell her? Told her I'd try. He looked at his coffee. Some days are easier than others. Yeah. Point is, Warren, you fought hard. Saved your land. That's worth something. But don't let the fighting be all you remember. Don't let her take that, too. Inside, Tuck's kitchen smelled like roast beef and potatoes. He'd set 2 places at the table, put out Carol's good plates. We ate in comfortable silence. 2 old men who understood that sometimes company was enough. After dinner, I drove home. The ranch looked different in the twilight. Softer, somehow, gentler. The barn was dark. The windmill turned slowly in the breeze. Lights were on in the house, the ones I'd left burning that morning. I parked and sat for a moment, looking at the place my great-grandfather had built, that my grandfather had expanded, that my father had held through drought and depression and the slow death of rural America. 4 generations of Bledsoes. Now it was just me. I went inside, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table with the ranch journal, turned to a fresh page. April 28th, divorce final. Preston fled the state, Jolene on probation, ranch still standing, calf Gina gaining weight, good breeding stock, meadowlarks back for the season. Dad used to say the land remembers who loves it. I hope that's true. I hope it knows I fought for it. Hope it knows I'd do it again. I closed the journal, left it on the table where it had always been. Tomorrow I'd fix the gate on the south pasture, check the irrigation system, Start planning for summer hay. The work never stopped, and that was fine. The land would be here long after I was gone. That's what made it worth saving. 3 weeks later, I sat on the porch at dawn with my coffee. The rain gauge showed 2 inches from last night's storm. Good for the grass, good for the cattle. I opened the ranch journal, wrote the date, the weather, the first meadowlark count of the morning, 12 birds in the windbreak. Spring was here for real. The fields stretched green toward the horizon, the kind of green that only comes in May after good rain. Miguel was out checking fence in the North 40. I could see his truck in the distance, dust trailing behind it on the section road. Tuck's truck pulled into the drive at 7. He got out with 2 cups of coffee, same as he'd done every morning this week. Thought you could use the company. Always do. We sat in silence, watching the sun clear the tree line. A calf bawled from the barn, Gina probably wanting her breakfast, strong lungs on that one. She'd make a good mother someday, pass on good traits to the next generation. Pastor Winslow asked about you yesterday, Tuck said. Wanted to know if you'd be at church Sunday. Probably. Good. Folks are asking. They want to see you're all right. I am all right. And I was. Not happy, maybe. Happiness would take time, but whole, intact, standing. The windmill creaked in the distance, the sound that had marked every morning of my life. My father used to say that sound meant home, meant permanence, meant something that lasted. I picked up the journal, read the entry I'd written at 3 in the morning. All those weeks ago, Jolene waiting with another man at the airport. Below it, I wrote, May 19th, storm last night, 2 inches, grass coming in strong, calf Gina healthy, land held for the 5th generation. They thought silence was surrender. Turned out it was just preparation. I closed the journal, set it on the table beside me. The sun was warm on my face now, the coffee still hot. Some battles you win with noise. This one I'd won with receipts, a passport, and my father's warning from 70 years of ink. But the real victory wasn't in the winning, it was in the staying. In the morning coffee, and the rain gauge, and the meadowlarks returning. The land remembered, and now so would I.